Okay, let's recap what we discussed in our previous session. I just prepared one spreadsheet with the all our discussion items and also the lab items. The left side one is all the discussion items. We just started with the vSphere install, configure, manage, ICM course introduction. The all the details we can find from the VMware website, and the certification for this course is certification is VCP DCV 2022. And this certification, normally if you want to write this examination, we have to get it trained official VMware training, and this is a normal discussion topics only. Okay, and we discussed about the virtualization overview and why we are using the VMware server virtualization. And we discussed yesterday some basic server fundamentals. We talked about the HPE server models and VMware compatibility guides, and also the types of servers we discussed. Three types of servers we have: tower server, rack mount, and blade server. And server components also we discussed: motherboard, CPU, memory, storage, IO device. These are all the main server components. And ESXi server supported models also. This one, if we can verify from VMware compatibility guide, or we can verify from the respective hardware vendor guides also. Like Dell, sir, if it is a Dell, we can verify from Dell website, HP server website, and IBM website. Okay, the respective hardware principal vendor websites also we can verify the server compatibility checks. Or else one centralized option is VMware compatibility guide. Okay, and the labs, we downloaded the VMware Workstation 16, and also we downloaded VMware Server Windows Server 2022, and we verified how to install the VMware Workstation on our Windows system, and also we shared the some installation instruction for the Linux system, and we created a virtual machine and installed the guest OS 2022. And today also we'll do the some same way. We'll create one more additional virtual machines, and we'll install the Red Hat Linux and also the ESXi server today. And we tested the how to configure Active Directory on Windows Server 2022, and we created a user and assigned the domain admin permissions. So hope everyone did the practice for these labs. Okay, and today let's start the today discussion items. Today's agenda is we are going to discuss the architectural differences and virtual machine concepts and the benefits of using virtual machine and creating a virtual machine and install the guest OS. Here the guest OS is nothing but a virtual machine OS. We call it as guest operating system. This guest operating system today we will test for three flavors. We'll test the one Windows server and one Linux and ESXi server. Okay, and install the VMware tools on virtual machine. So let's move on to the first topic, architectural differences. If you see the architectural differences, mainly we have three types of architectures. One is traditional architecture, or we can say physical architecture, and the second architecture is host based architecture, and the third one is bare metal architecture. So in a traditional architecture, if you see the diagram, the every hardware architecture we call it as x64 architecture. X means it's any 64 architecture, and this architecture consists of main hardware components are processor, CPU, memory, and we also have a NIC network card, and we have a storage. We can use the storage, we can use any kind of disks.
So your screen isn't visible.
Sorry.
So your screen isn't visible.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Let me share the screen. Okay, is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we are discussing these five topics: architectural differences, virtual machine concepts, benefits of using virtual machines, and creating the VM, installing the guest OS, and install VMware tools on a virtual machine. So let's start with the architectural differences. We have three architectural differences. traditional and physical architecture, and host-based architecture and bare metal architecture. When it comes to the traditional architecture, every hardware we consider as a x64 architecture, and in this hardware, the main key components are processor, memory, network card, and disk. And disks we can use any of type of disk like a SSD disk or flash drives. Okay, on top of the x64 architecture hardware, we are installing the operating system. On top of operating system, we are installing the any applications, any required applications. Suppose even in our laptop also, we have the hardware motherboard. On top of our laptop hardware, we are installed the Windows client operating system, Windows 10 or Windows 11, or if you are using a Mac version, Macintosh operating system, on top of the operating system, we are using our required applications like MS Office, Adobe Flash Players, and any of the other third-party applications. This is the traditional architecture. When it comes to host-based architecture, the only difference is in the host based architecture also the hardware is common x64 architecture. On top of the hardware we are installing a operating system, and after the operating system, as part of the application, we are installing the one of the virtualization host based software, the software name called VMware Workstation. When we install VMware Workstation, the workstation is a virtualization software. It allows you to create a multiple virtual machine. For testing purpose, I created a three virtual machines: VM1, VM2, VM3. And what is virtual machine? Virtual machine is looks like a physical computer, and it will allows you to install the guest operating system and application, same like a physical server. And virtual machine also have a virtual components. This is considered as vCPU, vmemory, virtual NIC, and virtual disk. And same applicable for other virtual machines also. Not only three VMs, based on your hardware resources, we can create multiple virtual machines on a VMware workstation. This is the host-based architecture. In our real-time scenarios, the host-based architecture is used only for the testing purposes. It's not for a production use. When it comes to the bare metal architecture, the bare metal, if you observe the difference, instead of operating system, ESXi server itself, it's a operating system. We have to install the ESXi software directly on the hardware. That is nothing but a bare metal architecture. In this architecture, ESXi directly run on hardware. On top of the ESX server, it allows you to create a multiple virtual machines. So for testing purpose, I create this diagram shows the three VMs: VM1, VM2, and VM3. So this is the differences between the architectures. So traditional, host based, and bare metal. So most of the production environment we recommend to use bare metal architectures only. So let's move on. Okay, virtual machine concepts. So as I mentioned, virtual machine means is a software computer that, like a physical computer, runs an operating system and applications. So in this diagram, if we see on your virtual machine, we have the operating system. On top of the OS, we are running the multiple applications. So the virtual machine components also include operating system and VMware tools. And yesterday we installed the VMware tools. VMware tools main purpose is it will once we install the VMware tools, it will provide all the virtual machine device drivers. Whatever the components we have in a virtual machine, all the hardware drivers will provided by VMware tools. And virtual resources such as CPU and memory, network adapters, disk controllers, parallel and serial ports. About virtual machine files, normally whenever we create a virtual machine, either it in a VMware workstation or ESXi server, wherever you create a virtual machine, default virtual machine created in a one of the virtual machine folder. After creation of virtual machine, it includes all this set of files. So today I will show you what is the importance of all these files. Here given the description of every virtual machine file description. Suppose if your virtual machine file name is vm underscore name dot vmx, vmx is nothing but a configuration file. This configuration file consists of all the virtual machine configuration details, which means if the virtual machine we created with 2 CPU, 4 GB of memory, and 40 GB of hard disk, all this CPU information, disk and memory, NIC, all this information is stored in the VMX file. And when it comes to the swap file, VSWP is the shortcut for the swap file. And this swap file also it will create when we create the virtual machine. Okay. And the BIOS file, BIOS also it's normally a basic input output system. Normally we can see the BIOS in our laptops and servers. The same way virtual BIOS also available in the virtual machine. That BIOS file extension is NVRAM non-volatile RAM. And the virtual machine log files it will create it in a vmware.log. Vmware.log file it consists of whatever the changes you performed on the virtual machines, all the changes is stored in the vmware.log file. And we also have template configuration file. VM underscore name is the common for every VM. Suppose our VM name is vm1 vm1.vmtx, that is the template configuration file. The template is one of the important concept in VMware vSphere. I will explain in the following classes. Okay. And the disk descriptor file VM underscore name, the VMDK means is a disk file virtual machine disk. Normally this is the descriptor file, and the actual data is stored on a VM underscore name hyphen flat.vmdk. This flat.vmdk consists of actual disk data information. And we also have some other disk files, that is raw device map file. Normally raw device map we can use when we want to add any of the bulk size of shared disk files to virtual machine. That scenario it will create a rdm.vmdk. rdm means raw device mapping. And the snapshot disk files also we have in virtual machine. Snapshot means pre-reserved state of VM. If you create any virtual machine snapshot, when you create a snapshot it will create a default all the snapshot related files. Snapshot disk file by default VM name hyphen delta means temporary value 001.vmdk. If you create a second snapshot, it will create VM name hyphen 002 dot vmdk. 001 002, these all considered as a delta value. And the snapshot data file is virtual machine name dot vmsd. Sd means how many snapshots we have. That information is maintained by vmsd file. And the snapshot state file, that extension is virtual machine name hyphen snapshot dot vmsn. And the snapshot memory file, this memory file also it maintains the snapshot memory information. Suppose while creating the virtual machine snapshot, if you select the memory option, the memory size also stored on the snapshot.vmem file. And the suspend state, suppose if you want to suspend the virtual machine during the suspend scenario, it will create a suspend file. The suspend file extension is .vmss. And the suspended snapshot memory state, even during the suspended state it will create a suspended state memory file. The memory file extension same like snapshot memory .vmem. So these are all the list of the virtual machine files. Today we are going to observe all these files, how it is creating and where it is creating. Default creation for this all the files is wherever you store the virtual machine. This virtual machine consists of one folder. Inside that folder you will find all this list of files. Okay. Now, the another topic is physical resource sharing. Wherever you create the VM, either you can create on VMware workstation or you can create on ESXi server. Wherever you create, always the how the virtual machine CPU, memory, disk, NIC is coming is these all completely sharing from the physical system. Suppose here, if you see in this diagram, physical resources are common: CPU, memory, NIC, network interface card, or we call it as network adapter, and also the disk. All these physical resources, whatever the sizes you have, the available sizes only we can share it to the virtual machines. Suppose my physical system have a 20 CPUs and the memory also 20 GB, and we have a physical needs and we have a disk size is 100 GB. These available resources, if you want to create a virtual machine based on your physical resources, I have only 20 CPU. That means each virtual machine I'm planning to give 2 CPU. So that means max we can create a 10 VMs only we can create. And the memory also equally we can distribute to the all VMs, and same with disk also equally we can distribute to the virtual machines. If you do not have enough CPU, enough memory means we have to use another physical box to create a additional VMs. Like that we can increase the ESXi boxes. So remember, always whatever the resource available in the physical, all these resources will be shared to the virtual machines. Now we can observe the benefits of using a virtual machine. If you observe here, the physical machine, we can also call it as physical server or normal physical server box. This server box, normally if you want to move from your one data center to another data center, suppose my data center is in Delhi, I want to migrate the server from Delhi to Pune. During the server migration, if it is a physical server, it will take a, we have to take the downtime for that physical server and plan to move the server from Delhi location to Pune. So that means it's a difficult to relocate. When comes to the virtual machine, it is easy to relocate. Why it is easy to relocate means, just now we discussed virtual machine means it looks like a software, it looks like a physical server, but it is a software generated machine. It consists of list of files only. You just copy all the encapsulated files and you can move it to wherever you want. You can easy to relocate. And and also the additional thing is specific to physical hardware. Sometimes the physical hardwares are tied up with any of the integration with other servers or other integrated devices, so that is also difficult to relocate. But in the virtual machine scenario, it's pretty simple. You can just migrate the virtual machine from one location to another location. And also difficult to manage. If you want to maintain the any of the physical server, if you want to do any modification on the existing physical server, CPU, memory, disk or NIC, we require a downtime. We have to power off the physical server and increase the memory and increase the disk and increase whatever the hardware peripheral you want to change. But when comes to the virtual machine scenario, we no need to take the downtime for virtual machine for hardware changes. Here hardware changes means virtual hardware changes. When the VM is power on, we have a features from the VMware, the feature called hot add feature. Hot add means it allows you to add CPU, memory, disk, and NIC. While the virtual machine is power on, we no need to power off the VM. We just while the VM is up and running, you can just right click the VM, edit settings, and you can increase the CPU, memory, disk, whatever the hardware component you want to add. Okay, and the hardware has a limitations. If you want to do any changes, like yesterday we observed the few of the HP old model hardwares like generation 9, it's supported up to ESXi 6.5 OS only. If you want to use a ESXi 6.7 or ESXi 7, latest version 7.0, we have to upgrade our hardware to the latest model, which is ends with the generation 10. HP latest generation 10 models. So that means hardware always have a limitations with the compatibilities. But when comes to the virtual machine, it's completely a virtual machine. Is there is no compatibility issues. We can easy to manage and there is no limitations. It is flexible to do the all kind of application checks and software upgrades. Okay, that is the main benefits of virtual machine. Okay, now we can observe the lab. So before creating the virtual machine, suppose in the real-time scenario, how it will be like. Yesterday we observed the workstation one VM creation. For testing purpose, we created whatever we required, we just created. But in the real-time scenario, there will be divided into the three steps. The first one is pre-implementation step, and the second one implementation procedure, and third one is post-implementation steps. So pre-implementation steps, suppose in our office, the customer is requested to create a new virtual machine. So before creating the VM, for test lab in our workstation or a home PC, we are keeping the VM name as any name. But in the real time, it's not like that. We have to provide a specific naming convention as per the company standards. For example, our company is HPE. We are creating a one of the application server. So the name normally will be like a HPE and it's a application server. So first server, so we make it as a VM APP01. APP01 means it's a one of the application server. Suppose if you want to create in future second application server, you can make it as VM APP02. That is the naming convention is the one of the example. But sometimes whatever the company have the standard naming convention, we should follow the same naming convention while assigning the virtual machine name. And the CPUs, suppose sometimes few virtual machines may require two CPU, and if it is a very critical server, customer may request for a more than two CPUs. Like either they may request for 8 CPU or 16 CPU. Based on the requirement, you can just fill the build before preparing the VM itself. You can have a list of how many CPUs is needed for that VM. Make a list of CPU information, memory information, and disks also. Sometimes usually they will request for a two disk. Disk one is go for a operating system, and the disk two for a to store the additional data, and the disk three is a optional. If some scenarios they may ask for more than two disks also. Okay. And the network card also, it's a not only one NIC card, they may request it to add a multiple NICs also. And the operating system, before creating the VM itself, we should get the details from the customer which operating system they are trying to install. They require a Windows latest version, Windows 2019 or Windows 2022. We should get the clarification for the operating system details. Suppose the customer is looking for a Linux operating system, we need to ask for which Linux version they are trying to install. It's a Red Hat Enterprise Linux, in short form RHEL 8, or they are looking for a RHEL latest version 8.5. So we need to gather this pre-implementation details before we start creating the virtual machine. And the implementation procedure, we already familiar. Yesterday we created one test VM. Same way, create a virtual machine as per the requirement, and install the guest operating system. Guest operating system, whatever the customer requested, the same guest OS we can install. And the post implementation steps, once we install the operating system, the procedure is just power on the virtual machine and install the VMware tools. VMware tools installation is required only for the Windows operating system. If you are using a Linux operating system or Solaris operating system or any of the appliance OS, for those kind of operating systems, we no need to install VMware tools additionally. By default, the software comes with a open VM tools. So the open VM tools, defaultly it will come with a Linux operating system. That scenario, we no need to install a manual. But if you are installing a Windows operating system, we need to install VMware tools manually. And they change the computer name similar as VM display name. Suppose our VM display name is VM app 01, you should change your computer name to same name, VM app 01. And assign the IP address for the guest operating system, and also that join the system to domain. If you are using Windows, if your company have any of the domain controller, the same domain controller, you can join the system. And the change the time zone. Suppose if your server is in India, you can set the time to IST time zone. If the server is in a different country, based on the country location, you can set the time zone. Okay. And activate the guest OS license. If it is Windows, activate Windows license key. And similarly, if it is a Linux, activate the Linux license key. And disable the IE enhanced security. This is only for the Windows servers. And turn off the firewall also optional. Normally we turn off the Windows firewall if we are using any external firewalls. Companies, they may use some of the third party firewall devices. That scenario, we can just power off the guest OS firewall and we'll use the third party firewall. And enable the RDP. We can enable the remote desktop connection. If you are using a Linux flavored VMs, we need to enable the SSH. SSH means secure shell. For Windows system, we can connect using remote desktop connection, but SSH we cannot connect through remote desktop. We have to use command line method. That command line method we can use a secure shell. Some of the tools also we can use to access, which is PuTTY or SSP. Normally we'll use the PuTTY to connect to the all Linux machines. And test the virtual machine access for via RDP. If it is Windows, you can try through RDP, and Linux, you can try to access through PuTTY. And install the project specific application. Suppose your customer is requested for a application server. He want to install any specific application, like they want to install a SAP. You can install the SAP application. The second time they may request for a database server. You can install the required database server on the specific virtual machine. So like that, that is the reason we just mentioned as install project specific applications. And virtual machine guest OS hardening. Normally, every company have some security. They will follow the operating system, must follow some security benchmarks. That security benchmarks is nothing but our every system password should be more than 15 characters, and password expiry for every 30 days or every 60 days, and they have some set of security benchmarks. Based on the security benchmarks, we should set the guest OS level hardening. Okay, and finally provide the once your all the information is ready and the virtual machine we have to testing also confirmed, the finally you can provide the virtual machine details to end user. End user we can also call it as customer or client, or we can also call it as tenant, whoever it is, whoever the requester is requested for the virtual machine. You just assign the all the virtual machine details to customer so that they can verify the virtual machine access using RDP remote desktop or SSH session. Okay, this is a usual real-time scenario to build a virtual machine. Okay, and now we are going to observe the lab for creating a virtual machine, and we can install the guest OS. Today we are trying to install the Windows Server 2019 as well. Yesterday we observed the 2022 how to configure the same procedure for 2019, and also the RHEL 8.5 I will show you, and I will show you the ESXi operating system also. And the initial guest OS installation is pretty simple. We just follow the on-screen instructions. Whatever the instruction is showing, just follow the on-screen instructions wizard. It is pretty simple to install. And RHEL and ESXi, we no need to install the VMware tools. It comes with OS by default. Only for Windows servers, we have to install the VMware tools on a virtual machine. Okay, so we'll start the lab. I'm just opening my VMware workstation. Okay, yesterday we created the test VM Windows 2022 VM01. So now I'm going to create another VM. Let's go to the home, create new virtual machine. So while creating the virtual machine, select custom and choose the default settings. And I will install the operating system later. Later we can mount the ISO. Next. And now I'm planning to install Windows Server 2019 first. So you can select Windows Server 2019. Click next. And the name, let's say as per our template, will follow the standard naming convention just for our testing purpose. So let's say my naming convention is VM app 01. So this is my VM name. The same naming convention you can assign here. App 01, that means it's a application server 1. And the location you can choose wherever you want. So we already created one folder for virtual machine. I'm creating the same location, C drive virtual machines. So now click next. So it says that there is a existing virtual machine. So we'll just go to the virtual machine folder and we'll see. Okay, there is another virtual machine folder. So what we can do is we'll create one more folder, VMs. So I will map to the VMs. So select VMs, click on OK. So now these virtual machine files will be going to create on a C drive VMs folder. So now click next. And the firmware type, you can choose the default firmware. And the number of process, I'm giving the 2. And memory 2 GB. And the network settings, you can choose the default one. And IO controller, input output control types also, you can go with the default controller type. And the virtual disk type NVMe recommended one. And IDE is SCSI, these are all the old model of disk virtual disk types. This is the latest. NV non-volatile memory disk. And create a new virtual disk. Click next. And this specify the disk capacity. And normally we recommend to create the disk as a single file. And the disk size you can keep as a same size or you can reduce the size. So let's leave it the same default size 60 GB. Now click next. So just now we discussed virtual machine disk file name means how it will create. It shows as a virtual machine name dot VMDK. VMDK means virtual machine disk file. So now click next. This is all the configuration we did it. And you can see the name, location, version, and also the operating system, all the virtual hardware details. Okay, now click on finish. So once you click on finish, you will find the virtual machine is created. You can see the icon VM app 01, and we have all the virtual hardware components: memory, processor, hard disk, CD, network adapter, USB controller, sound card, printer, display. These are all the virtual components. So now we are going to mount the ISO 2019. So you can edit virtual machine setting here, or right click the VM, go to the settings. Any method you can use. So edit virtual machine settings. Now select the CD DVD compatible disk. Either you can use physical drive. If you have a physical drive, you can connect the CD, or you can use the ISO image file. So I have the ISO images for 2019. Let me see from downloads. Okay, this is the Windows 2019 ISO file. So let's mount the ISO. And when you mount the ISO file, the device status should be connected state. Click on OK. Okay, ISO file is mounted. When you power on, it will start loading using the Windows 2019. See, press any key to boot the ISO. So now the ISO file is started booting. It will install the operating system on our virtual disk file. See, you can see Windows Server 2019. This is a screen instructions. Default language keyboard is US. So let's keep the same. Click next and install now. So same way you can also practice in your home system, create a virtual machine and download the Windows 2019 using Microsoft website. So here standard evaluation means it's a command line core OS. So for desktop experience means it's a graphical mode. So I'm selecting the desktop experience standard evaluation. Click next. Accept the license agreement. Next. And the first option is usually for upgrade purposes. So for fresh installation, choose custom install. And the disk unallocated space 60 GB, go with the default, select disk, click next. So now the installation of Windows is in progress. It may take around 10 to 15 minutes time to finish the installation. So in the meantime, we'll create the Red Hat Linux also. So let's go to the home, create virtual machine. Same method, same like Windows previous VM. Click next. I will install operating system later. And now here we can choose the relevant operating system. So I'm planning to install the Linux. So you can select Linux here. On the drop down menu, you can choose the Red Hat Linux. So I downloaded the Linux latest version, Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8. So you can choose the same one, RHEL Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8, 64-bit. So when you select the OS, just click next. And again, the virtual machine name. So for easy understanding, I'm choosing the name as RHL8. So let me check the ISO type. ISO I downloaded is 8.5. So you can maintain either same name or RHL8 also fine. Okay, let's set the same name, RHL 8.5. And the location, let me change the location here. You can keep here, or I will create a folder for RHL. RHEL. Okay, let's click on browse, C drive. I'm just mapping to install on a RHEL folder. Click next. So default minimum requirement is 1 CPU. Okay, let's go with the 1 CPU default and memory 2 GB. And next, and LSI logic is recommended. We'll go with the default. NVMe, create new virtual disk. And to install a RHEL minimum size is 20 GB only. So I will go with minimum disk file, click next and click on finish. See, when you click on finish, the virtual machine is created. The VM name is RHEL 8.5 and let's mount the ISO file. Click on CD DVD and use ISO image file. Let's mount the RHEL. Okay, RHEL image file is mounted and device status is connected state. Click on OK. So now power on. See, it says it's automatically boot the 8.5 within 57 6 seconds, or else if you just press enter, it will start. Okay. See, within our local system, now we are managed to run two operating systems. One VM is running with Windows 2019 and another VM is running with RHEL 8.5. So if you see here, it is checking the ISO disk. The checking is in progress. Once it reach 100%, it will start. In the meantime, we'll observe the Windows 2019 status. Oh, this is also almost finishing. And the Red Hat Linux ISO file download also, same like Windows, we can download the ISO file from RHEL site. You can just type in the Google RHEL 8 download. The first two option you will find the Red Hat site, access Red Hat site. So you can just create one personal account to download the ISO files. Okay, the product downloads RHEL Enterprise Linux. When you click here, it will prompt you to create the ID and password. Once you create, you can easy to download. Okay, so here we can see the download. We have the binaries RHEL 8.5 binary DVD recommended one, and the size of this file is 10 GB, 10.2 GB. The remaining one is like it's a lightweight ISOs. If you download this 10.2 GB ISO file, it consists of all the required packages. So better to go with the recommended ISO. Okay. And later I will going to show you the ESXi installation also. See, VMware is the ESX. Same way, if you want to download the ESX also, same method. You can just type in the Google VMware ESXi download. The first link you will come for the VMware website. So you can choose either free ESXi. If you want the ESX 7 directly, you can choose the second URL. And always remember to download from the official website instead of third-party websites. Okay, see the download VMware vSphere. When you select VMware vSphere, there is a multiple license editions: VMware Essential, Essential Plus, Standard, Enterprise, and normally Enterprise Plus only have the all the features. So we no need to download the basic editions. We'll just download the Enterprise Plus edition. Enterprise Plus, you can find VMware vSphere Hypervisor. Another name is ESXi. ESXi means Elastic Sky X. So ESXi, you can just go to downloads and you can just download here and download the ISO image only. And the offline bundle is normally it's a extension is different extension. It's a zip file. This offline bundle will use only when we plan to upgrade the ESXi server from 6.7 to 7 series. That scenario will use this offline bundle. But if we are installing freshly using the ISO file, the first one is the relevant one. VMware vSphere hypervisor image. The file type is ISO and the file size also very minimal, 390.11 MB. So just download now, it will download. And suppose if you want to download the 6.7 series, just go back and here the selected version, the previous old versions are 5.0, 5.1, 5.5 and all, but nowadays most of the companies are migrated to 6 series and few already upgraded to 7. So I just downloaded two flavors, 6.7 and 7. So if you want to try on a 6 series also, select 6.7 and you can download the 6.7 ISOs also. Even this ISOs also, instead of essential, essential plus, just scroll down and you can download the enterprise plus. Okay. And even go to download, and we have two types of packages, zip and ISO. You can choose ISO only. Okay. If you need more details, just click on read more. You will find when this ISO was released and the build number. Okay. And if you see here, this point says ESXi image includes VMware tools. So we no need to install VMware tools separately. Only the VMware tools required for a Windows systems we have to install manually. Okay. Now let's back to the VMware workstation and we'll see what is the current status. See, Windows 2019 is installed and RHL 8.5 start is English, click continue. Okay, and installation summary. This is the installation summary. So before installing, it's showing the option automatic partition. Either we can select the partition automatic or we can create the partitions manually. So we'll just click here, and the 20 GB is our disk space. So installation destination is this one. Okay, we no need to do the any of the changes. We'll go with the default one. Click done. Destination is selected, the same 20 GB disk. And also the another as default Red Hat server, Linux server, the default administrator name is root. So for this root account also we have to set the password. And same way confirm password, and root password is set. Click done. It is showing the weak password. Let me increase the characters. Okay, now click done. Okay, so if you see the installation summary, we selected the location, language is English, and time and date. Default, it will select the America's time zone. Later, if you want to modify, we can modify the time zone. And the software connect to Red Hat, not yet registered. This is for a licensing purpose. And installation source, local media, and software selection, server with GUI mode. We are installing with the graphical user interface. GUI means graphical user interface. And installation destination, we selected the same disk, whatever the VMDK file we mounted, the same disk, and the kdump is enabled. Kdump is nothing but a kernel dump. And the network and host not connected. The network also IP settings we can configure later. Security policies also we can create it later. And if you scroll down some more, user creation, no user will be created. If you want create any other user, we can create here. But the default user for Linux is root, and the password we already set. Now let's begin the installation. Okay, it may take another 10 to 15 minutes time to finish the installation process. So we observed the two VMs creation. One VM is Windows 2019, another VM is RHL 8.5. Let's back to the Windows VM and we'll set the password here. Windows login administrator account is administrator only. Okay, now click finish. Okay, if you see the screen, currently there is no VMware drivers, like no VMware tools. So that is the reason screen is showing as half screen. Once you install the VMware tools, the screen will be expanded as, and it will enhance the all the virtual machine inside the screen, all the drivers. Okay, let's right click the virtual machine, send control or delete. So now we'll fill this template just for a testing purpose. So server 2019 we installed first. So we created the name as VM app 01, and how many CPUs we assigned for this VM? Right click the VM settings. You will see all the hardware information. CPU, we given the total processor cores are 2. So you can enter the total processor, vCPUs are 2. And memory, how much memory we assigned for this VM? We assigned the
Okay.
memory is 2 GB. So you can enter here 2 GB. And the disk size, we assigned the disk is only one disk. So the disk size is 60 GB. So I'm just filling here 60 GB. Okay. And the virtual machine, second disk we haven't created yet. We'll create if we want, we can create the disk also. And this is optional. Okay. And the network card, we have one network card, and operating system is Windows Server 2019. This is the pre-required information. Okay. When you are working in the office environment. Okay. And the create virtual machine as per the requirement we already created. So this is done. And install the guest voice also done. And the VM also already in the power on state. And install VMware tools is the next step. So now we'll start install the VMware tools. Let cancel. So whenever we install the Windows Server, default the server manager widget will open. Okay, just close this widget, and there is no VMware tools here. Normally, if you have VMware tools in the right side corner, we'll see the VM tools icon. So there is no icon. Just right click the VM to install the VMware tools. Right click VM, install VMware tools. When you select install VMware tools, it will mount another ISO file inside the system. See, the VMware tools is mounted. Now just double click, it will start the installation process. Okay, welcome to the installation wizard. Now click on next. We'll use the default options, typical, and ready to install the VMware tools, install. So even yesterday we installed 2022. If you observe the yesterday's OS and today OS, almost the same. The only the version is different. The steps are almost similar. Okay, see the now the display screen is enhanced because of drivers are already installed. See completed. Now click on finish. You must restart the system. So to apply the changes, just click on yes. Okay. So now the VM is boot up. Let's log in and verify whether VMware tools are installed successfully or not. So to verify the VMware tools, in the right side corner, you can observe that whether VM tools icon is created or not. Okay, now see, you can see the icon is VM. If you select this one icon, VM icon, it shows as VMware tools. It's installed. The another way to verify VMware tools is just go to the control panel, add or remove programs. When you select the add or remove programs, you will find the VMware tools. See, VMware tools are installed. The install date is today's date. Okay. There is a command to open this widget. If suppose if you want to open the command, just type run. Command is appwich.cpl. If you type appwich.cpl, it will open the direct wizard. Okay, this is a way also we can verify VMware tools. Okay, let's back to our VM build checklist. See, this step also completed. And next, change the computer name similar as VM display name. So our VM display name is showing as VM app01. But if you see the OS level computer name, this computer name is different from the display name. It is showing the default name. So if you want to change this name, change the settings and change the VM name. So change VM name to VM app01. Okay, click on OK. Again, we have to restart to apply these changes. Click on OK, close, restart. Okay, so display name also changed, and IP address we selected default DHCP while creation of VM itself, so it will come the IP address automatically. And the domain option, currently our DC's VM is in power off state, so it's a optional step. Okay, we'll change the time zone, and the license also we are using the evaluation method. So evaluation method means until 180 days, no issues for the license, and the remaining steps will test now. Okay, and also disks, if you want to add the additional disk, I will show you how we can add the additional disk. Okay, VM is put up, send control alt delete, login. Okay, so now let's go to the system properties. We'll see the virtual machine name, see the computer name, and now the VM name, both names are same. VM app01, here also VM app. This disk only C drive, and if you want to add another disk, the procedure is we no need to power, just right click settings. Inside the settings, in the virtual machine settings wizard, below you can see the add option. So just click on add and select the hard disk, click next, and SCSI is recommended. Go with the default recommended one and create new virtual disk. Click on next, and default size it will be 256 GB. So click next. See, the another VMDK file is creating. VM name -0.vmdk is going to create. Click finish. So now click on OK. Saving the information. See, without any interruption, the another disk is created. If I right click the VM again, go to the settings, we can see now two hard disks are added. One hard disk is 60 GB and another hard disk is 10 GB. But when you come to the guest operating system, still we are seeing only the one disk. So how we can see the second disk is we have to configure manually in the guest OS. The guest OS configuration procedure is open the start run, type disk mgmt.msc. The command is disk mgmt. Mgmt means management, disk management we have to open, and the ends with msc, it's a Microsoft console. So just press enter. So now when you type this command, it will open the disk management console. So this command will type from the run. So open the run. So the run command you can type now, disk mgmt.msc. It will open a disk management console. See, you can see disk management console is open. And here the default disk is whenever we assign a new disk 10 GB, it is in the offline only. We need to bring it to the online. So to need to bring it to the online, if you see the color also showing as red color, just right click the disk and select online. So that means the disk is Now bring it to online. If we didn't see the any information, just go actions, refresh. Now right click, disk is already online, and also it is showing as unallocated and the color is black. So we have to create a new volume. So right click and initialize the disk. Click OK. So we have to initialize. Now the disk status is showing as online and still it is unallocated. We have to create a drive letter. So drive letter currently C and the CD is showing as D drive. We'll choose the subsequent letter. So click next. 10 GB we are creating the volume. Click next and assign the following drive letter. By default it will choose the subsequent letter CD and the next alphabet is E. So it selected the same drive letter. If you want to modify also, we have a procedure to modify. Okay, now click next, and the default guest OS operating system file system is NTFS. NTFS means new technology file system. If you select the drop down, you will see the old version of file systems, FAT also. FAT32 is the old version. Latest version is NTFS, new technology file system. And select NTFS, click next. And it will perform quick format. So you default, it will check this option, click next and finish. See, now the drive letter is assigned, disk is open, disk is created. Open the system properties, select this PC. You can now you will find the two drives, C drive and E drive. So additional drive is created. So what is the size for the E drive is 10 GB. So the same information you can update in our template. So 10 GB disk is created. Suppose similarly, if you want to add another disk, the same procedure. Suppose for testing purpose, I'm adding a 2 GB disk. Same method, go to the specific app virtual machine, right click, settings, and click on add, select hard disk, click next, use the default option, create new virtual disk, create as a single file, and it is showing as 60 GB. We'll plan to add a only 2 GB disk. Click next, and this time disk name is showing the subsequent number, virtual machine name -1 dot vmdk. Now click on finish. So click on OK. So when you click on OK, disk is created. If you want to verify the third disk created or not, again right click the VM settings, and you can see the three disks are created. One is 10 GB, one is 2 GB, and the OS is running on a 60 GB disk. Okay, three disks are created. So by default, the disk will not come here. So what we have to do, again, go to the disk management. So you will see that disk 2 is offline. So first bring it to online. And once it is online, again, it is showing as not initialized. So not initialized means again, right click this disk 2 and initialize the disk. So initialize disk, click OK. So now it is initialized online and still it is showing as unallocated. Unallocated means we have to create as a new simple volume. Click next and the default size and the drive letter it's pick from the subsequent letter F, and the file system same, perform quick format. Click on next, finish. See, now the formatting is completed. We have the F drive. Open the device and drives, you will find three drives: C drive, E drive, and F drive, and D is the CD drive. Okay. So hope you understand how we can add the additional disk to the virtual machine without any downtime. While the VM is up and running, we added the two disks. Okay. And the NIC code is one. Even if you want to increase the NIC code also, same procedure. Same like disks procedure. Right click the VM settings, click on add. Whatever the hardware components you need additionally, you can add those components. Suppose network means you can add a network adapter. Okay. And now go back to template. So this all information is clear. And the domain join, if you want to join to domain, this is optional step. And the change the time zone. So time zone, we already know how we can change the time zone. Just click on right corner and select the date and time settings. And now here change the time zone to our country location. So let's say our country location time is Okay, plus 5 UTC plus 5:30. It's selected. See, if you see, the time is updated to India time zone. Okay, that's the way we can modify the time zone. Now disable IE enhanced security. This option, how we can disable is just open the server manager, select the local server. Under local server, you will find this option IE enhancer security configuration. Just click here and change it to off. Click OK. So this option is off. Refresh the screen. See, now the status is changed to off. So this option also done. And next one, turn off the firewall. This is also optional. If you want to turn off the firewall, normally in the office, we'll turn off the Windows Defender firewall. We'll use the third-party firewalls, like any antivirus firewalls we can use. So to disable here, just come here and disable. You can see advanced settings. Under advanced settings, you will find domain profile, private profile, public profile. Just click properties and off all the three firewalls. See, all the firewalls are off. Now click on apply and click on OK. If you see now, the Windows Defender firewall on the three states, domain profile state off, private state off, public profile also off. Okay, this setting also completed. And now the another option is enable RDP. RDP means remote desktop connection. So if you want to enable the remote desktop connection, how we can find here the option remote desktop default is disabled. You can just click here, and if you when you select allow remote connection to this computer, it will allows the remote desktop connection. Just refresh to update this information. Just click on refresh button. See, now the remote desktop status is enabled. So this option also completed. And now we can test the VM access, because just now we enabled the remote desktop. We'll test the access. So if you want to test the access, either we can connect using the computer name, or we can connect using the IP address. So to verify the system IP address, open the command prompt and type the command ipconfig. When you type the ipconfig, you will find the IP address. So IP address is, this is IP address. So let's open the MSTSC. MSTSC means Microsoft Terminal Service Connection, and type the IP address 192.168.218.129. So type 129 and now click on connect. Connect. See, we are able to log in. So log in with a different account. So default administrator account is administrator, and enter the password. So click on S. See, see, the remote desktop connection is working normally. So we are successfully logged into the remote desktop connection. You can see here the IP address remote desktop connection. So if you want to log off, just type the log off. So this option also completed. We tested the remote desktop connection. And now finally install the project specific application. Whatever the application you want to install, you can install same like our laptop PC, same way you can install. And the guest OS hardening also, it depends on the customer requirement, we can harden. And finally provide the details to end user means, for end user we'll provide the virtual machine name. I'm just highlighting here, virtual machine name will provide to customer, and also the IP address also we have to provide to the customer. The main IP address and the VM name we have to give it to the customers. So using the IP address or computer name, customers will connect the servers remotely. Okay, so this is the virtual machine complete build procedure in the real-time scenario. Now let's back to the other OS. We can see what is the status for Red Hat Enterprise Linux. See, we can see installation progress complete. So to apply the normally once it is completed, we have to reboot the system. So click on reboot, and it says use this product subject to be license agreement. Okay, click on reboot. Okay, reboot is in progress. Okay, it's loading. Okay, it's completely booting. If you see, my system CPU and memory is completely utilizing. Okay, now it is showing the license is not accepted. We have to provide the license details, or else it's in the evaluation mode only. Okay, are you sure you want to click the configuration? No. Okay, here we usually we have to provide the subscription details to activate the license key and all. Next. Okay, it's asking to create a user. Let's create a user 01 and enter the password. Okay, now done. So user is created. Accept the license agreement. License is accepted. Now finish the configuration. This subscription, normally in the real environment, we have to provide all our subscription details here. Okay, so now if you want to test the user one login, we can just test it here. Okay, click on sign in. Okay, so it's loading. Okay, the post configuration steps. The default language English. Next. Okay, English. Next. Location services. Let's off. We can skip and you are ready to go. Okay, so this is the Linux operating system looks like. So we can open the terminal here. Just select the activities, select the terminal, and if you want to see the IP address, you can type the command. Windows Server, it's ipconfig, but here is ifconfig. When you type ifconfig, we can see the IP address for the system. Okay, present it is showing the gateway and the IP is not yet assigned. We'll assign the IP address. Okay, so this is the way we can install the Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So if you type uname space -r, you will see the kernel version details. Okay, so we'll create another VM now and we'll install the ESX server. but I think we have to power off these VMs because my system memory is very low. So I'm just powering off these VMs. Right click the VM, power, shut down guest, and I will power off the Linux also, power, shut down guest. So now I'm going to show you the your ESX. Let ISOs. Yeah, I have both ISOs. Let's try with the ESX 7. So click on next. Let me put the name as ESXi 7. Okay, latest version, and we'll create a folder ESXi. So let me create under the ESXi folder. Okay, now click on next. So default recommendation to CPU, okay, and memory is 4 GB, okay, and use the default network type, and IO control also default. But if you observe here, this time is para virtual SCSI, okay. Next, SCSI, create a new virtual disk, and we can create the disk as a single file, and it is asking for 142 GB, okay. We'll keep the default size. I think my system do not have that much free space. Let me reduce the size. Just reducing the size to 40 GB. Click next, next, and finish. So we have created one virtual machine to install the ESXi 7 and mount the ESXi 7 ISO file. Click on browse and mount the ESXi 7 ISO file. Click on open and click on OK. So ISO file is mounted. Now power on the ESXi 7. Click on OK. So it's already started installing the ESXi server. Installation is very simple. We just follow the on-screen instructions. Okay, so this is the way we can install ESX server. So you can see the OS VMware ESXi 7.0 and the CPUs are Intel Core i7. So it may take a while to finish the installation. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please let me know. So this virtual machine we created under C drive VM's location. If we select the hard disk, we'll see this is the path C drive ESXi. So it may take a while. In the meantime, we'll observe the virtual machine files. So go to the C drive ESXi. See, you can see the virtual machine files here, the file names. If you want to see the extensions, go to the view and enable file name extensions. When you enable file name extensions, you will find the file name extensions. See, As discussed, the default virtual machine configuration file is .vmx, and the pre-configuration file is .vmxf, and we also have another file, snapshot data file .vmst. Virtual machine disk file extension is .vmdk, and the BIOS file extension is .nvram, and the memory file which were .vmem file, and there are some other lck file. Lck files is nothing but a log files. Okay, and the log file is vmware.log file. So whatever the virtual machine file names we discussed, all the files are created, and there is no snapshot file because this VM do not have doesn't have any snapshots. When we create a snapshot, it will create the additional snapshot files. Okay, the same thing applicable for other OSs also. Suppose if I open a RHL VM, even RHL VM have same files. .vmx, .vmsd. It's a snapshot metadata file. There is no snapshot. That's why size is showing as 0. And .vmdk is a snapshot disk file, nvram BIOS file, and log file. So same applicable for Windows system also. Go to the VMs. See, you will see VM app 01, VMX, VMDK. We created a 3 VMDKs. So I'm just highlighting the all 3 VMDK files. See, 3 disk files are created. Okay, and nvram file and log file. If we open the log file, we'll see whatever the activities we performed on the virtual machine, all the logs are created in this vmware.log file. So including the timestamp, all the log information we can see here. Okay, these are all the log information. See, previously we shut down the VM, that shutdown log also created here. Okay, so now let me close this log file. Let's back to the ESX status. See, ESXi 7.0.2 installer. See, welcome to the VMware ESXi installation. To continue, click enter. And end user license agreement. So for end user license agreement, it is asking for F11 accept and continue. So just press F11, function key 11. So now it's scanning for all the available devices. It may take few seconds to start. Okay, it's detected our hard disk. Our hard disk size we given as 40 GB. So to continue, click enter. And language, keyboard language, US default, enter, and enter the password for the root. So remember, Windows system default administrator account is administrator. For Linux and ESXi, default administrator account is root. So I'm assigning the password, confirm password. Now enter. So to confirm the installation process, just press F11. So installation is in progress. So you can also practice these 3 OSs in your home PC, Windows, Linux, and ESXi. If we see our actual curriculum, the main concepts of VMware vSphere is ICM, install, configure, manage. So we are in the installation stage, and the tomorrow session will continue the subsequent topics. So today we can end with the ESX installation. And if you recap the labs, we discussed today all this one, architectural differences, virtual machine concepts, and we discussed some of the virtual machine, what is the importance of virtual machine components and VM virtual machine files. We verified the created virtual machine files details, and how the resource is sharing. Even if the resources, let's say my laptop have 8 GB memory, the whatever I have the local laptop, the same memory is shared to the VMware workstation. See, the 48 MB is used for the VMware workstation, similarly for virtual machine. So physical resource sharing. Okay, and we observed the differences between physical and virtual machine, and we observed the virtual machine build checklist. This is a normal checklist we'll use in the real-time scenario. Okay, And finally, we tested the VM creation and the 3 OS installation and install VMware tools. All this we discussed. Okay, see now the installation is completed. It's saying that remove the installation media before rebooting. So how we can remove installation media is right click the VM, edit settings, select the CD DVD and just uncheck the media. Okay, now click on OK. Suppose if we didn't uncheck means again it will start booting with the ESXi 7. So that's the reason they're recommending to remove the media and now enter. Okay, now the installation completed. If you see the on-screen instruction, it clearly says that ESXi 7.0.2 and it's a VM kernel release. We have the build number. For every version, we have a default build numbers, and it is a VMware 7.1. It is showing 7, comma 1, and the how many CPUs we assigned. The CPU information it is showing. It is a 2 CPU Intel Core and i7 model, and the CPU speed is 1.90 gigahertz, and the memory is 4 GB memory. And to manage this host, go to the, it's clearly given, we have to choose this URL to access this ESXi host. So open the browser and try to access this host. So while accessing, we'll just type the IP address of this host. What is the IP address? 192.168.218.130. Okay, I'm just typing that IP address. Okay, it's a DHCP IP, but in the real-time scenario, DHCP is not recommended. We have to assign the manual IP. So next class, I will explain you the IP addressing concept. So open the browser and type this URL and press enter. So it says that your connection is not provided. Just click on advanced and proceed to continue. So now we can see the ESXi server homepage. This is the VMware ESXi server homepage, and the default username is root. Root is the actual ESXi server administrator account, and enter the password. And click on login. See, this is the ESX server homepage. It is asking to help improve the VMware host. It is like a part VMware. We can send the feedbacks to VMware. Either you can select or just uncheck and click OK. See, now you can see ESXi box 7.0 U2, and you can find right side, you can see the CPU utilization, memory and storage information. So what is the purpose of ESXi? Just right click the host. It allows to create a virtual machine. How we created the virtual machine in VMware Workstation, the same procedure to create a virtual machine in ESXi host. So I'm just showing you the virtual machine creation. Right click the VM, create virtual machine. So It's you just to follow the on-screen instructions. New virtual machine, create a new virtual machine. While creating the virtual machine, it is showing the three options. The first option is create new virtual machine, and the second option is deploy a virtual machine from an OVF. Here, OVF means Open Virtual Format, or OVA, Open Virtual Appliance. Sometimes instead of ISO file, if you have any OVA file, that file also we can use to deploy a virtual machine. And the third option, register an existing virtual machine. Today we discussed about virtual machine files. We can easy to move from one location to another location. Suppose if I have any existing virtual machine, if I want to register on this host, you can choose third option. Okay, but currently there is no VMs on this ESX. I am just selecting the first option. Create a new virtual machine. Click on next and enter the virtual machine name. Suppose for testing VM only, I am just selecting the VM name as VM01 and the compatibility 7.0, and we have to choose the guest OS family. Earlier, using the VMware Workstation VM also, we selected the OS family, right? The same way we can select the guest OS family. So select the drop down menu. If you plan to install Linux, select Linux, Macintosh operating system, select Mac OS, or if any other operating system like Solaris, you can choose other. Suppose if you plan to install Windows, select Windows. And the guest OS version also same drop down version. You can see all the Windows flavors right from beginning to until the latest version, and it also include the client version of Windows as well as server versions. Suppose if I want to install the latest server OS, Microsoft Windows Server 2022, you can choose that one and click on next. So here we have to select the storage to install the operating system. It is showing that no items to display. So we have to configure a storage also for this ESX. So we'll configure it later also. Just click next. So select a data store to store the virtual machine file. So it's recommended to create a data store first. Let me cancel here and go back to the host storage tab. Here there is no storage. Let me select as new storage, create a new. Okay, currently we haven't configured any storages here. So that is the reason it's not allowing to store the VM. If you want to create a data store, VMware it supports for a two types of data store. One is NFS and another one is VMFS. NFS means it's a network file system and VMFS means virtual machine file system. Any of two format we can use. So this one I will show you in the next class. Okay, I'm just canceling. But the procedure to create the VM, same procedure. Select the host, right click, and you can choose create virtual machine. Okay, and we install the ESXi in a evaluation mode, and evaluation mode license is 60 days. Okay, so your home PC also you can just practice the ESXi installation and verify how to access the ESXi host. This is one method to access the host using the URL, and another method is we can use command line also. Suppose the command line we have to use the tool name called putty. Just download putty, and using putty also we can connect. So I'm just downloading in this. Okay, putty is downloaded. This is the way SSH we can log in. Even the Linux system also SSH session using the putty only. So here you can enter the IP address. What is our ESX IP? 192. Just copy the IP of ESXi, copy and paste it at the IP address. Okay, this is the IP address. And if you see the connection type, you can connect the ESXi host you only using SSH session. Now click on open. See, when we open, it is showing us network error connection refused. Even if you noticed earlier in the Windows system also, default remote access is disabled. We have to enable the remote connection. Same way in our ESXi also, default remote connection is not available. We have to enable the SSH. So to enable the SSH, we have multiple options. Either we can go to the connections, advanced settings, and search with SSH. So here we can see the yellow remote desktop connection. That option need to be enabled, or else other way is we can go to the ESXi command line screen, direct ESXi screen, and press F2 function 2. Enter the login password. Okay. Here you can press Alt F2 to access the direct command line access. So DCLI. I'm pressing the Alt F2. If it is not showing means we can see the DCLI is enabled or not. Go to the troubleshooting option. See the enable ESX shell is disabled state. Let me enable. Just enter to enable. See now the if you see the right side, we can see ESX shell is enabled state. And enable SSH, even SSH session is disabled state. To enable, just press enter. Okay, now SSH also enabled here. Press escape to log out. Okay, now again we'll try from here. Open putty. Okay, click on accept. So now it allows to log into the SSH. Okay, see we successfully log into the SSH session using the SSH also. Okay, if you want to verify the ESX version from command line, type the command VMware-v, VMware space -v till the version from the command line. See the version is ESXi 7.0. Suppose the disk space, if you want to verify here, the command is df space -h. Df means disk free, how much disk is free. So you can see the ESXi server partition sizes here. Okay, and the free space currently used only 9%, 5%. So we have enough free spaces on this local disk. Okay, so that's it for today. Today we did the labs for creating VM, and we try to install the server 2019 and 2022 we discussed already yesterday, and RHEL 8.5 installation, and also the ESXi 7.0 I just shown the same procedure for 6.7 also. The only version different, the installation procedure is same. And the VMware tools installation on Windows we also discussed. Okay, so the same labs you can also practice in your home system. Okay, let's quickly recap. So what we covered here today.
Ar-
Yes.
Architectural differences or comparison.
Okay, architectural differences and virtual machine concepts. Any other
Mm, virtual
benefits of,
machine file.
yeah, virtual machine files. Okay,
And installation of
okay. Benefits of using virtual machines. Okay, this is all completed. Let's back to the lab. Lab, we observed the create a virtual machine. Okay, and we also observe the virtual machine build checklist. Okay, creating a virtual machine, install a guest OS. We observed for Windows 2019 RHCL 8.5.
ESXi 8.5. ESXi 7.
Okay, okay, and we also install the VMware tools on Windows VM. Okay, so these all covered. So start practicing the remaining labs also. Okay, if you have any questions, let me know. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.